Hey, so if I were a young musician in 2026, I want to tell you some things that I would do. And by the way, if we haven't met yet, my name is Ted and I talk bass. Over 2 decades as a professional musician, stage, studio, classroom educator, tech integration coach, content creator. My goal with this channel is to make the bass guitar, music, and ideas around music a little bit more accessible. So if you like that kind of content, I welcome you. Go on and hit all the buttons. The very first thing, let's say I'm 19, 20, something like that, with a little wiggle room, right? You're not, you don't have to live with your parents. You can roam a little bit, okay? So I'm saying 19, 20. If I were a young musician in 2026, what I would do is get brutally honest about the kind of music that actually moves me, the kind of music that I actually want to play. Because see, here's the thing: if you want to catch big fish, you got to go where big fish bite. And a lot of musicians fail because they never really choose a lane that they want to be in. And the truth of the matter is, not everybody can be all things to all people. Not everybody is going to excel at all genres. I got my lane and I do my lane well. Um, and, you know, there was a time when I wanted to be the dude who played everything. I'm not that dude, right? I have to be realistic about that. But see, a lot of people drift, right? They play a little bit of everything, they say yes to everything, and then they end up everywhere. And what happens when you end up everywhere is you really end up nowhere, right? So if you start a career on somebody else's ride, you could really spend a lot of time in the wrong places with the wrong people playing the wrong music. And then you're left wondering, well, why didn't anything click? I've been there. So if I were 19, 20 years old, I would be very, very solid on what kind of music I wanted to play and let that guide me. Yes, there's going to be other things that come up along your journey that are going to interest you. There's a story that I told my old student Elise, and I never forget it. We were standing. She said, "I don't know what I want, Mr. Ted. I don't know what I want to do." And I looked at the water fountain at the end of I said, "Let's say the water fountain is your goal. Man, you could walk down this hallway and you can get distracted by a lot of different things. But as long as you can keep that water fountain in goal in sight, if that's your goal, then it's okay to maybe but keep the goal in mind, but you have to start with a goal, right?" Let me tell you about this being uh, all things to all people. I just saw this cat that named Grant Benjamin, and I hope he's okay with me calling him out. Super nice dude, killer rock guitar player. He had a rock look, rock tone, rock identity. So I met him in New Orleans, and he was here, and I got him on a couple of things, and nothing he played sucked. I mean, he's a great guitar player, but I knew right off the bat that this wasn't his thing. He didn't have the funk, the jazz, those sensibilities. And that wasn't a problem, right? Nobody ran him out of the city. But I think he took inventory early and said, this city is cool, but this ain't really my scene. Now I saw him on Instagram recently, and I told him straight up, you made the right choice. I didn't even have to explain it. He knew what I was talking about because now he's in an environment where he can play and excel in the style of music that moves him and that he's really good at. And so, again, he came, he saw, said, maybe this is not the spot for me. Maybe I ought to go. And you got to use your youth before you start getting those responsibilities, start getting tied down to different things. You got to use your youth to, you know what I mean, suss that out. So you have to, yeah, man, youth has a lot of it is what it is, and hindsight is always 2020. Understand you're gonna do some messing up. That's okay. But principles don't change. And if you have some barriers about I ain't gonna do this. I don't care what happens, I'm not gonna do this. Or I'm gonna, Those guardrails are important. So you have to take inventory early and be honest about what you want. Okay. Now, listen, again, your desires will evolve over time. But if you don't choose a direction, you're going to spend a lot of time, more time than you need to, in places doing the wrong things with the wrong people. I can look back on my own life and see bands, situations, relationships that I stayed in way longer than I should have. Right? Not because I didn't know, but because I didn't want to admit it. And somebody that's my age or around my age is probably watching this, listening to this, and being like, damn, I don't know what that's about. So, again, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. Sometimes you're going to be embarrassed. And that's all a part of it. That's the process. But if I were a young musician in 2026, even while working as a sideman, this is something else I would do. I would build something for myself the entire time. I would be keeping, um, I would be building an inventory of things that I could, what can I live on down the line? What can I monetize down the line? What can I collect on long term? Okay. Um, because time is not waiting for anyone. That's not a euphemism. We all get there, right? So if you're 19, 20 right now, hear me clearly. Your 20s are going to fly by. Your 30s are going to show up faster than you think. And a lot of musicians, their 30s come with a moment of panic and they say, damn, what did I actually do in my 20s? How did I prepare for where I am now? So a lot of us are living in the moment. And yes, there's a time for that. It's good to live in the present, but there's a line. Okay, there's a great scene in the movie Saturday Night Fever when Tony tells his boss, yeah, fuck the future, and the boss says,
You can't fuck the future. The future fucks you. It catches up with you and it fucks you if you ain't planned for it.
and that line will hit you different once you've lived some life because you'll be like, damn, that's really true. So right, I just turned 55. I'm 55 at the time of recording this video, and I've done all right. I've had some lucky breaks. God been on my side. Um, not just lucky breaks, but I have, there came a point when I said, hey, listen, the bass player thing might need a little backup. Now let's talk about that. You always hear people say, well, I didn't have a plan B. Now you don't always hear it, but you can, sometimes you'll see celebrities or whatever say, I didn't have a plan B. And notice that they usually say that after they have made it, after the money, after the impact, after the security. And I'm not saying that they're wrong. What I am saying that it's a lot easier to say that from the other side. You know what I mean? So for me, bass was never the only thing, right? So I always had some sort of a side job. And I was lost, there was a period where I was really lost and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But being creative interested me. Teaching interested me. Sharing knowledge interested me. Telling stories interested me. So along the way, I discovered teaching. And no, this isn't one of those, you hear this thing, those who can't teach. That's BS because I was teaching and doing the thing at the same time, at the same exact time, right? But teaching did give me something that few people talk about when you're young. I was able to get some semblance of a retirement plan, right? Something, right? And here's the thing about the system, whether you like the system or you don't like the system. And nobody talks about this when you're in your 20s. It doesn't matter if you like the game. You still got to play the game. So in order to get out of the system, you have to put into the system. You understand what I'm saying? And then people talk about, well, by the time I reach retirement age, Social Security won't be there. I don't know that, but I would rather prepare in hopes that it is there than to not do anything. You understand what I'm saying? So, it's coming for you whether you're ready for it or not, right? Now, I'm going to give you an example. I got a buddy who was an engineer and a guitar player, very good guitar player. Now, when we were playing, we were traveling and stuff. We would go do spot dates across the country. You know, he did the family man thing. He raised his kids, he retired from engineering. Understand, he retired from engineering. Now he tours the country with a tribute band, making good money. Tribute bands make good money, not because he has to, because he wants to. And that's real freedom, right? So never let anybody, shy you away from having you a straight gig, right? While you're still doing the thing. So for me, just to make it clear, I said, I love playing bass, but it's not just playing bass, it's being creative, telling stories, teaching, making content. All these things started to fall under the same umbrella. So everything that I do has to have some creative umbrella, be under that creative umbrella. What are the things that move me? What are the things that spark my interest? So, for instance, I wouldn't go get a job as a construction worker. I don't know nothing about that. I did when I was younger, but that's not my path. And that's not where I want to, that's not a good use of my time. Right. So don't let anybody shame you out of preparation. Okay. That's proper preparation prevents piss poor performance every time. Last thing I want to say, and this is going to matter more than people want to admit. I'm just telling you off the top of the dome. Um, and you could take this information if you want, you could discard it, right? Take care of your health. Listen, I had a season where my health just wasn't right. But I still had to play. I still had to work because, that was what I did for a living, right? But I was miserable. But I've also seen people have to stop. I've seen, musician homies pass away. I'm not talking theory. I'm talking real facts. Your health, that the saying, your health is your wealth. When you're in your 20s and your 30s even, you know, you're not thinking about your health. And the world is different now than it is when I was in my 20s. I got lucky genetically. Lucky always, for the most part, good health. I was active. I had in my 20s, all the jobs that I had in my 20s were manual labor jobs. So I was always moving and things like that. But, you know, in my 40s, I really started working out and things like that. But it ain't like that for everybody. Nowadays, I see young cats. I'm like, hey, bro, you young, I'm old enough to be your father, and you can't bend down and touch your toe, man. Look, I like fried chicken and soul food. Uh, I like Gus's fried chicken. That was an unintentional plug for Gus's fried chicken. Anyway, um, your health is your wealth. That's not just a saying. Take care of your health. All right. So these are just some things that I would do if I were a young musician today. And I know there are some seasoned musicians, some cats that are my age or older. And it doesn't even have to be about being a musician. It could be about anything, right? Because I got a feeling that it's not just musicians that watch this channel. So for you OGs, you unks, you OGs, you triple OGs, man, leave some of your wisdom in the comments for the younger generation of musicians and non-musicians coming up. It ain't rocket science, it's pocket science.